Let me just say, first of all, I appreciate so much people wearing their traditional costume to honor their ancestors and their tradition. It's very beautiful when people honor their tradition. If I wasn't the presider, I would have had to worn a kilt, but I don't have the legs for it, and so we're all luckier about that. There is fast God and there is slow God. There is God who is in a hurry. We can experience our God as the God who is in a hurry, or we can experience our God who is taking his time. And we have to get used to the fact that our God can do both of these things. And so in our gospel and our readings, we have God sending the Holy Spirit, and God's in a hurry to get the Holy Spirit to those people, to fill their hearts with his Spirit. And he gives them what they need to do. He's in a hurry to give them a spirit, to empower them and send them forth to preach the gospel to the whole world. That's God in a hurry. But God who's taking his time is, we still haven't preached the gospel to the whole world. We still have a lot to do. And that's going to take more time. And so we find that sometime in dealing with our God and with the Holy Spirit that he sends to us, that sometimes that Spirit, sometimes our God is in a hurry, wants to get things done now, wants us to make a move and to get to work now. And then there are times when the Holy Spirit is not in a hurry, but is doing the preparation work, the long preparation work in our hearts or in our culture, so that when it is time for us to be in a hurry, we'll be ready. And so I'm speaking today in this homily. This is words. This is me trying to speak through the Spirit. This is God in a hurry right here. This is God in a hurry in my heart to speak to you the words of the Holy Spirit so that your hearts will be moved to make some kind of a conversion, because that's what happens when the Holy Spirit touches us and enlivens us. What happens is a conversion, a change of heart or mind. That's the Holy Spirit at work in us. That's how we always know the Holy Spirit has touched us. Something has changed. And so this is all about words. But there are times in our lives when God seems to be so silent. He doesn't seem to be speaking words to us. And then where is God? And the silence, of course, is also the presence of God. But this somebody talking to you, trying to speak the words of the Spirit, that's God in a hurry. I'm trying to hurry you towards deliberating. When you go out of here to have someplace you're deliberating about, that's what homilies are about. They're to get us to deliberate about our lives and say, do I have some decision to make? That's God in a hurry. But when God is speaking to us, when God's not in a hurry, when God's taking his time and he seems to be silent in our lives, but he's laying the groundwork, but he's doing the long, long planning and the long, long preparation to make us into the kind of person who he can one day say, now get at it. Now we're in a hurry. So we must get used to this God who sends his Spirit to us, and sometimes is in a hurry, and sometimes is taking his time into the infinite patience of God and long, long preparation and thoroughness and planning. I loved seeing the little flames on everyone's head. It was so beautiful. It was such a wonderful idea of sisters. I thought it was a little crazy when she suggested it, but I didn't tell her that. And then I thought it was absolutely genius, because what it said is that the Spirit of God has been given to every single one of us. That's what it said. The Holy Spirit has been poured out on every single one of us. That is incredibly beautiful. I have said this probably in every other homily, something like this that I have given since I've been here, about how we all have the gift of the Holy Spirit. And on this particular day, when the people who are gathered together at the outpouring of the Spirit hear the gospel preached in their own languages, in so many languages, then today has to especially be about cultures and how God speaks to cultures and not just individuals, and how God has poured his Spirit into every culture on earth and not just us individuals. And so I wanted to say a little bit about what we Catholics call evangelization. It's that scary word for Catholics because we think it means we have to become evangelical Christians. We have to go knock on people's doors. We have to buttonhole them, and we have to do embarrassing things. And that's not what Catholic evangelization is about, because none of us are going to do that. But one of the things that our church has realized in the last several hundred years is that we made huge mistakes when it comes to evangelization. We've made huge mistakes when it comes to preaching the gospel. And one of the reasons is that we don't just evangelize cultures, we don't just evangelize individuals, we evangelize cultures. We go to cultures and we bring the Holy Spirit to them. And we have made huge mistakes because we've tried to spread the gospel through force by twisting people's arms, we've tried to use violence. We have, one of the great stories is about St. Francis Xavier, who baptized 10,000 people with his right hand over his lifetime of evangelization, 10,000 baptisms in India, Japan. He said, he wrote back to the people who ran the missions back in Portugal, who were running the missions in southern India. And he said, I'm not having any trouble people hearing the gospel and embracing it. The only problem I've got are the people who call themselves Christians. They're the ones who are ruining the reception of the gospel, because these Portuguese sailors who go to mass all the time and call themselves Christians are abusing the women and stealing the resources of people and are only interested in making themselves rich. And they're the ones who call themselves Christians, and they're the ones who are stopping the evangelization. It's the people who call themselves Christians. And isn't that still so true sometimes today? I once worked with Native Americans, and there was a course of the people who came there were Italians, and the Italians were their ancestors had the great classical culture of great stone buildings and reading and writing and systematic reflection and philosophy and literature. And they went to the Native Americans and they said, well, there's no culture here. They didn't see the culture that was right in front of them because it wasn't like the culture they came from. And so well, there isn't any culture. Well, we're going to have to give them culture. And so then you had to become a white European in order to be a Christian. And so we Christians have been guilty of bringing incredible shame upon the gospel and the preaching of the gospel. And so we need to own that. And we need to see how the church has changed its mind and is trying to do something very different. And so we talk now about the evangelization of cultures, not just individuals. And we don't start with Jesus. And it might not be what people think. They go, well, we got to go tell people about Jesus. Well, no, that's not where we start nowadays. Where we start is with the Holy Spirit. Where we start is that the Spirit of God has been poured into the hearts of every single person, everywhere, at all times. And every culture then is a culture that we have to start with reverence for the culture. We have to go to another culture that is stranger to us, and we have to reverence it because the Holy Spirit has been alive in that culture, in the hearts of its people. And it doesn't matter what religion they have belonged to. It doesn't matter whether they are atheist or not. It doesn't matter whether they're a Buddhist. It doesn't matter whether they're indigenous. It doesn't matter. They have the Holy Spirit poured into their hearts. It is the first gift of God to all people. It is the first gift of God to all people. So we don't go to heathens. We go to people that we have something in common with. We all have the Spirit that is pulling and tugging us towards love and care and kindness and holiness, even though sometimes we're afraid of that pull towards holiness. Error. So we start with the Holy Spirit. We start with the gift of God that has been poured into every heart and is pulling and tugging us to be the best we can be. Because what we believe then is that every culture has been prepared by God to hear the gospel eventually. But when the gospel of Jesus is preached, their hearts will have already been prepared by all of the wonders of the beauty and the wonders and the goodness of their cultures. They'll be open to hearing about Jesus and the love of God that comes through him. They'll be open to hearing about love, about forgiving enemies and loving our enemies, and the values of Jesus Christ, because they'll have been prepared. So their gospel is holy, so their culture is holy. And we have to reverence it, first of all. And we then don't come to people in another culture. We don't come to people in another culture and say, you know what, I've got something for you. So listen up, I have something for you. We don't say that. That's not how we preach the gospel nowadays. We go to another culture and we say, let's talk. My name's Jerry. Let's talk. Because you have something to teach me, your culture has something to teach me, and I have something to give to you. And so we don't go, evangelization is not like this. Evangelization is we're going to talk. We're going to share. And what's going to happen then is that you're not going to lose your culture. Instead, your culture is going to be enriched. It's going to be enriched, and you're going to enrich my culture. Your religion is going to be enriched, and my religion is going to be enriched. And this is an example of just that. A print of an icon of an indigenous Coast Salish woman as Mary and her little child. And that's with the salmon, with the holy salmon and the water that their culture is all based on. This is not somebody losing their culture. This is somebody enculturating the gospel so that my culture is enriched too. That's what evangelization nowadays is about. And so, of course, those of us who happen to be, our ancestry is white Northern or white European, who are the dominant culture so far, maybe only for a short time, but is right now the dominant culture in this country. We got a lot of work to do because our culture isn't very Christian. And so we better learn from other cultures how to be more Christian, because we have to re-evangelize our own culture, because it's a post-Christian culture. It's not living by the standards of Jesus Christ. It's not taking his teaching seriously. We're the ones, we have to be re-evangelized. And so this is that day when we celebrate how the Holy Spirit has been given to every culture in the world, and how we all need to be in this great dialogue with one another. And we start with what we have in common. Holy Spirit of God, the gift of God. And I have said so many times before, and I'm going to say it again, the Holy Spirit of God is not just a gift from God. It is the gift of God. That means that God lives in the hearts of every one of us, everyone in the world, at all times, everywhere. God lives in their hearts. The Holy Spirit is the gift of God. And that means that the love in their hearts, when they touch the real thing, love, the real true love in their hearts, that is God come alive in them. The love in them is God in them. That's what we all have in common. And so we can go to other people in other cultures, and we can listen and learn, and we can share, And Jesus can be enriched in his church and all people throughout the whole world. My ancestors, my Jesuit ancestors used to go to India and Japan and China, South America, and they thought that they were saving people from hell. They were, oh man, we got to get there because we have to be in a hurry to save people from hell. In Africa, we got to save people from hell. Well, no, we don't. We don't do that anymore. We're not there because we all now understand that the first gift everyone has is the gift of the Holy Spirit. And if they live, and what's the Holy Spirit bring to every person? Love. And if they live up to what the calling of that love is in their hearts, they are saved by Jesus, whether they know about Jesus or not, whether they believe in Jesus or not. It's still Jesus' Spirit. No one gets saved without Jesus, but everybody can be saved through Jesus, whether they know about him or not. And I know I've told this story before, but the Jesuits who went to China and India and Japan, they rode back to Rome and they said, it doesn't make any sense. These people have been living here for thousands of years and never heard of Jesus, and they're more civilized than our Christian princes back in Europe. What in the world's going on? They weren't going to hell. They were living up to the spirit that they knew in the religion that they had. And all we had to do was say, do you want to add Jesus to that? It'll just get better. It'll just make it better. And so we're all called, we're all empowered by the Spirit and called to some work, sent on some work and ministry of God. As we come then to the altar here, and as we continue our celebration of so many cultures, let's ask ourselves, where is the Spirit calling us to be in a hurry? Where is God who's in a hurry calling us and saying, you must make a move now, send that letter, talk to that person, invite that person to Mass, become friends with that person and learn about their culture, reverence another culture and get to understand it and know it, so that you can speak to the heart of the culture, because that's what evangelism nowadays is. The gospel has to come from the heart of the culture. And we can't expect another culture to love Jesus unless we get to the heart of their culture and say, can you put Jesus in your heart and then make him part of your culture? So are we being called by the God who's in a hurry? Or are we being called to something by the God who takes his time and who is silent, but we know is doing the deep, deep planning, the thorough, long, long planning to prepare us and our hearts for that thing that we will have to do at some point? What gift of the Spirit has God given to us? The gift of being in a hurry, or the gift of taking our time and trusting what God will do?